We live in an age where we are constantly bombarded with the message that we need to be better. You wake up every morning and the list of things you want to improve seems to stretch on forever. You tell yourself that you need to lose 20 pounds and get in the best shape of your life. You promise yourself that you will read 50 books this year and stop wasting time on social media. You swear that you will finally organize your finances and start a successful side business. You want to be a more patient parent, a more attentive partner, and a more productive employee. It feels like you need to overhaul your entire existence just to keep up with the world. This immense pressure creates a paralyzing sense of overwhelm that actually stops you from starting. When you try to change everything all at once, you usually end up changing nothing at all. We have all been there on January 1st, fueled by motivation and high hopes. But by the third week of January, the willpower fades, and the old habits come rushing back. This cycle of enthusiastic start and inevitable failure is the trap of modern self-improvement. But what if the problem isn't your lack of willpower or your lack of desire? What if the problem is simply that you are trying to push too many buttons at the same time? James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, proposes a radically different approach. He suggests that the secret to changing your life isn't about doing more, but about focusing on less. He argues that complexity is the enemy of execution. When you have 20 goals, your attention is scattered and your energy is diluted. So how do you decide where to start when everything feels equally important? The answer lies in identifying and mastering a single keystone habit. Understanding the concept of the keystone habit is the code that unlocks your potential. To understand this, picture an ancient stone archway in your mind. The arch is a marvel of engineering, capable of holding up massive cathedrals. But the entire structure relies on one specific stone, placed at the very top center. This stone is called the keystone. It is the piece that locks all the other stones into position. If you remove the keystone, the arch loses its integrity and crumbles to the ground. But if you secure the keystone, the arch can bear incredible weight for centuries. Your daily routine and your life operate in the exact same way. Some habits are just isolated actions that don't really affect anything else. But a keystone habit is a routine or ritual that ripples into every other area of your life. It creates a positive cascade of good behavior that happens almost automatically. Let's look at the personal example James Clear shares from his own experience. For him, the keystone habit is simply going to the gym. On the surface, this looks like just a physical health habit. But let's trace the ripple effect to see why it is actually a keystone. When he works out, yes, he gets the obvious physical benefits of exercise. But the magic happens in the hours after he leaves the gym. He experiences a period of rapid cognition and high focus. He calls this the post-workout high, which allows him to write better and think clearer. So, 1 hour of physical effort buys him 2 or 3 hours of peak mental productivity. But the ripple effect doesn't stop there. It carries on into the evening. Because he has physically exerted himself, his body is naturally tired when night falls. He doesn't lie awake staring at the ceiling or scrolling through his phone. He falls asleep quickly and sleeps deeply, waking up refreshed. This leads to better energy the next morning, which means he is less irritable with others. And then there is the fascinating impact on his nutrition. James notes that he tends to eat better simply because he worked out. He implies that he doesn't want to waste the effort he just put in. Eating a greasy, unhealthy meal feels like a betrayal of the work he did in the gym. So without even trying to diet, his food choices align with his identity as an athlete. Conversely, when he misses a workout, the entire arch begins to crumble. When he doesn't exercise, he feels sluggish and his focus is scattered. Because he feels lazy, he is more likely to eat junk food. Because he eats junk food and has excess energy, he sleeps poorly. Notice that he wasn't trying to build better sleep habits or nutrition habits directly. He wasn't forcing himself to be more productive at work through sheer will. All of those things happened as a side effect of the one keystone habit. This is the power of finding the lead domino in your life. You push one domino, and the rest fall in a beautiful, effortless sequence. Most people exhaust themselves trying to push down every domino individually. The keystone habit strategy allows you to work smarter, not harder. Let's broaden this and look at other examples from high performers. Many CEOs and business leaders swear by a daily meditation practice. These are people with incredible demands on their time and attention. You might think they are too busy to sit in silence for 20 minutes, but for them, meditation is the keystone that holds their day together. If they get that 20 minutes of stillness, they gain emotional regulation. They react to stressful news with calm rather than anger. They make strategic decisions based on logic rather than fear. That one habit ripples out to affect their employees, their shareholders, and their families. Another powerful example found among artists and creatives is the daily walk. There is a book called Daily Rituals that chronicles the lives of famous thinkers. It is shocking how many of them, from Beethoven to Steve Jobs, insisted on a daily walk. Why is walking a keystone habit for creativity? Because the physical act of walking disengages the conscious mind. It allows the subconscious to work on complex problems in the background. It changes your physical state, which immediately shifts your mental state. So a simple walk isn't just exercise. It is a trigger for breakthrough ideas. Now you might be asking how to apply this to your own life right now. You don't have to be a CEO or a famous artist to use this strategy. One of the most famous keystone habits for regular people is making your bed. Admiral William McRaven famously said, "If you want to change the world, start by making your bed." It sounds trivial, almost too simple to make a real difference. But consider the psychological signal that this small action sends to your brain. It is the very first task of the day, and you have completed it perfectly. It gives you a small sense of pride and accomplishment before you even leave the room. That small win encourages you to do another task, and then another. It sets a tone of discipline and order that carries through the rest of the day. And if you have a terrible day, at least you come home to a made bed. It reinforces the identity that you are an organized and disciplined person. That is the true secret weapon of the Keystone Habit. It shifts your identity and how you view yourself. When you go to the gym, you are casting a vote for the identity of a healthy person. When you make your bed, you're casting a vote for the identity of an organized person. When you write one page, you are casting a vote for the identity of a writer. True behavior change is identity change. The Keystone Habit is the fastest way to prove a new identity to yourself. Another profound Keystone Habit for families is the shared dinner. In a world of distractions, sitting down to eat together is a revolutionary act. Studies have shown that this single habit correlates with better outcomes for children. It leads to better grades, better vocabulary, and lower rates of depression. Why does eating dinner together have such a massive impact? Because it creates a dedicated space for connection and conversation. It establishes a rhythm and predictability in a chaotic world. The dinner is the keystone that supports the arch of a strong family unit. For those struggling with money, the Keystone Habit is often tracking expenses. Just the simple act of writing down every penny you spend, you don't even have to restrict yourself at first. Just observe. This awareness acts as a powerful keystone. Because you are tracking, you naturally pause before making an impulse purchase. Because you are aware, you start looking for ways to optimize your bills. Because you face the numbers, you start planning for the future. One small habit of observation ripples into a completely different financial destiny. So, how do you identify your own keystone habit? You need to look for a behavior that gives you energy rather than draining it. You need to find something that feels like a small win but has high leverage. For some, it might be a morning routine of reading for 10 minutes. For others, it might be prepping healthy meals on a Sunday afternoon. For you, it might be simply tidying up your desk before you finish work. Ask yourself, what is the one thing that makes everything else easier? What is the one thing that, if I did it, would make other problems disappear? Once you identify your keystone habit, you must protect it at all costs. Treat it as a non-negotiable appointment with your future self. If your keystone is the gym, you go even if you are tired. You go even if you can only stay for 20 minutes. Because you are not just going for the workout, you are going to maintain the ripple effect and the momentum of your life. James Clear talks about the concept of never missing twice. If you miss one day, that is an accident. If you miss 2 days, that is the start of a new bad habit. Protecting your keystone habit is about protecting your identity. It is about showing up for yourself, even when conditions are not perfect. This philosophy brings a tremendous sense of relief and clarity. It means you don't have to be perfect in every single area of your life. You don't need to have willpower of steel 24 hours a day. You just need enough discipline to push the first domino. You just need to focus on placing that one keystone correctly. Physics, biology, and psychology will take care of the rest. Imagine your life exactly 1 year from today. Imagine if you stopped trying to fix everything and just mastered one keystone habit. Imagine if you just nailed the habit of a daily walk every single morning. You would be physically fitter, mentally sharper, and emotionally calmer. Imagine if you just nailed the habit of planning your day the night before. You would be more productive, less anxious, and more goal-oriented. The compound interest of habits is a powerful force that works over time. Time will magnify whatever you feed it. If you feed it bad habits, time becomes your enemy. If you feed it a good keystone habit, time becomes your greatest ally. You don't need to revolutionize your entire existence overnight. That is a myth sold by marketers and people looking for quick fixes. True change is a slow, steady burn, fueled by strategic routines. It is about finding the leverage point that moves the world. Archimedes once said, "Give me a lever long enough and I shall move the world." Your keystone habit is that lever. It amplifies your limited effort and multiplies your results. So stop looking at the mountain of things you think you need to change. Stop looking at the messy house, the tight budget, and the bathroom skill. Look at the keystone. Find the one small stone that holds up your entire structure. Focus all your energy on that one thing. When you do that, you will watch in amazement as your life transforms. You will see better sleep appear without trying. You will see better nutrition happen automatically. You will find focus and clarity returning to your mind. This is the path of least resistance to the life you actually want to live. It is not about grinding harder, it is about thinking smarter. It is about understanding the architecture of your own behavior. Start small, but start today. Choose your keystone habit and commit to it. Watch the ripples expand and touch every corner of your day. Let the cascade of good behavior wash over your life. Because in the end, we become what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. And it all starts with the keystone.